CDC disease detectives raced to Texas to track down any potential Ebola victims after the deadly and contagious killer virus hits U.S. soil. The first U.S. Ebola case verified when a male patient touches down Dallas, Texas, flying in from Liberia, wanders around metropolitan Dallas for 8 days before diagnosis. At this hour, reports up to 18 people potentially infected with deadly Ebola, including school children. U.S. health officials scrambling to contain the virus after this, the first case of Ebola on U.S. soil. Joining me right now, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN chief medical correspondent. Sanjay, it's a relief and an honor to have you with us. What's happening?
Well, you know, in some ways what is happening is historic. It's obviously concerning, but also wasn't entirely unexpected. You know, we've been hearing about what's been going on in West Africa for some time. I was over there a few months ago, and this idea that someone who had been exposed to Ebola and was carrying it in their bodies could get on an international flight and fly anywhere around the world, it's something that people have been talking about for a while. And that appears to be what happened here. It was a person who was exposed over there in Liberia, got on a plane. When they got on the plane, it sounded like they didn't have any sickness and were feeling just fine. Got off the plane on the 20th of September, felt just fine, and a few days later started to get sick, Nancy.
You know, I want to find out, you've been to West Africa. What was it like there, Sanjay, if you could tell us firsthand?
You know, Nancy, it makes you appreciate, I think, the public health system in the United States. I mean, the public health system, it just doesn't exist over there. We were there at an Ebola area, a place where they were taking care of Ebola patients. What it was, Nancy, was a series of tents set up in the middle of a field. And that's what happens a lot of times in those situations. They just don't have the capacity, the resources, the money, any of that to take care of the sort of things that we're talking about here. When somebody is sick with Ebola, you got to find all the people that they may have come in contact with. How do you do that? I mean, there's no phones, there's no roads. It's really, really challenging to try and stem the outbreak over there. So it's heartbreaking in a way, Nancy.
With me, everybody, and taking your calls, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN chief medical correspondent. Sanjay, Ebola is here in the U.S. We're getting floods of calls and emails, tweets. How is it spread? I know it's through bodily fluids, but does that include drinking after somebody, kissing somebody, having them sneeze on you? Break it down for me, Sanjay.
I think the two most important things, it is spread by bodily fluids as opposed to through the air. Like you think about the flu or a cold, that can be spread through the air. The other thing is that it's not spread until someone is quite sick. I mean, the people who have Ebola are usually in bed, they have a hard time getting around, or they're in a hospital. They're not up walking around a shopping mall, that sort of thing. You know, so there's a little bit of protection in that they're not going to spread it to large numbers of people. It's usually healthcare workers and family members. But yes, to your point, just getting a little bit of bodily fluid that's infected from somebody onto yourself, you know, onto your skin even, can possibly cause an infection. There have been reports for somebody who's very sick with Ebola, even sweat can actually transmit the virus. So it is highly infectious in that way. It doesn't go through the air, but even a small amount of it can cause an infection.